A lot of people shaking their heads today over a story that is developing out in Alameda, California. Police and firefighters called to a beach. They stood there and watched as a man drowned himself. We have spoken now to two witnesses, man and his wife, Warren and Sharon Brunetti. They were the ones who called 911. They ran into the victim and his stepmother shortly before all of this unfolded. Here's what Sharon Brunetti just told us.
She was just shaking and saying, my son is going in the water, and or he was standing next to her when we first got there, but she just was shaking. And then when the police did arrive, she said, oh, thank God. And then they didn't do anything other than question her and walk around the beach and observe. They didn't say anything during the whole 45 minutes, but at the end, I stormed up to one of them. I said, why didn't you do something? And they said, well, we don't go in the water. I said, well, where was your boat? Because there is I know there used to be a police department boat, and they said the boat is in dry dock. And they don't go in the water, so that was that.
We've also been speaking with CNN's Dan Simon. He's been talking to the authorities out there. This is the last we heard from Dan. This was just a short time ago.
You say to yourself, how does something like this happen? And we know that there were as many as 9 firefighters here at the scene standing by as this man was drowning in the water. What we know is that it was about 11:30 a.m. on Monday. This man, apparently distraught, intent on killing himself, 53-year-old Raymond Zack. He goes into the frigid San Francisco Bay behind me. His mother is nearby. A bystander calls 911 within minutes. Police and firefighters arrive at the scene, and as you put it, TJ, they basically just stand around and watch this man die. After about an hour, a witness, a bystander, she attempts to go in, but by the time she reaches him, the man is dead. It's just something that is outrageous, and nobody here can understand it. TJ?
Dan, can you help us understand how much time, again, actually went by from the time they got there and were on the scene until the man, we guess, was dead?
The timeline is a little sketchy, but we understand it was somewhere about 45 minutes to an hour. And these firefighters, at one point, they had the authority, they had the training to actually conduct these ground-to-water rescues. But about 2 years ago, the city, facing some budget problems, stripped the funding, and the department issued a policy where they said these firefighters could not enter the water. And so they adhered strictly to that policy. Some say, well, why didn't they just ignore it? A man's life was at stake. It's a very good question. Firefighters, at least the chief, is having a difficult time answering that. But basically what he's saying is that the funding is now back in place and that this will not happen again. But still, the citizenry is very, very upset, as you can imagine. And right now, there's still more questions than answers.
And Dan, one thing here quickly, and you said he's having a hard time answering some of those questions, even about, okay, policies in place, that's one thing, but at some point, and have you got an answer to this? At some point, it just appeals to you as a human being when you see another human suffering and literally dying, why they still didn't jump into action aside from any policy. Are you getting any answers to that? Are they saying the policy is so strict and that was first and foremost on our minds that we still had to do it was against human nature, which is to help our fellow man?
The sense that I'm getting, TJ, is that this is a man who wanted to kill himself. I think that played into it. He was also, from what I understand, a very large person, and they felt like, at least this is how the chief explained it, that if they attempted to go into the water, that they might put their own lives in danger by trying to save this man's life. I'm told that if perhaps this was a child or another circumstance, that firefighters may have reacted differently. But based upon the situation and what they encountered here at the scene, a distraught man, 53 years old, apparently weighing about 240 pounds. Police officers also saying they weren't sure if, in fact, he was armed and could have posed a risk, which basically I'm not sure how you could make that argument if he's in the water, how he could, pull a weapon or something like that. But I just don't know how to explain it, other than the fact that is apparently what they thought, that he was intent on killing himself, and that they didn't want to put their own lives at risk by trying to save him.
All right, thanks to our Dan Simon there.